You're listening to the Curious About Cannabis podcast.
And the big one, which I have been just studying relentlessly for 2 years, that I love talking about is sleep and sleep health. I some of the new data on sleep and new research is pointing to so many relationships like with sleep and anxiety, and that they're bidirectional, right? So you're not sleeping enough, you're more likely to have an anxiety disorder. Now you're anxious, you're not going to sleep as well. And sleep related to growth hormone release, hormone balance in general for young people, all people, neurogenesis, new brain cell growth, Alzheimer's. They're seeing a huge connection between, the amyloid plaque buildup in the brain and sleep deprivation. It's a massive topic. And I think when we think about our amount of time we're on screens at night and being exposed to the blue light frequency and the effect on our brain, and it's really impacting our sleep. We sleep right now on average 2 hours less per night in America than we did 100 years ago. It's having a huge effect on mental health. It's a big effect on depression and anxiety. And, we have pretty high sleep needs as humans and mammals in general. And I just think it's the sleep piece to me, it's playing a big role in substance use. It's playing a big role in mental health and our stress management, our physical health. It's such a huge topic. So that's one that I've been really, really passionate about. I think if people are interested in just doing a deep dive on sleep, there's a guy, a researcher out of UC Berkeley. His name is Matthew Walker. And he was interviewed on Joe Rogan's podcast. It's really compelling. And he's also on a podcast from Dr. Rhonda Patrick, which was really good and really deep dive into sleep. He wrote a book called Why We Sleep. And it's a great book around this too. But starting there, just listening to those podcasts, it will really spark you to think differently about it. I also sorry, I'm ranting about sleep.
No, go for it.
But I think with the sleep thing, what I try to tell people too is it's like nutrition. Like, let's be really mindful of our nutrition and what our food and where it comes from and how we eat, et cetera. But it can also slide into obsessiveness where then all of a sudden you can have a really unhealthy relationship with food. And we talk about, we have eating disorders, et cetera. So sleep is kind of similar. Like, I travel sometimes, right? So if I go to the East Coast and got to get up at 8 in the morning or get up in the morning at 6 a.m. on the East Coast, 3 a.m. here, I'm not getting a good night of sleep that night. And I just kind of wake up and go, okay, I don't drink coffee every day. I'll drink it today. And I'm using this drug caffeine really systematically on that day. But realizing like it's okay, occasionally we're going to not get great sleep, but if we get overly obsessed with it, then it can start to really affect us. We go to bed, we start to get mental rumination. So let's put attention and effort into our sleep in a way we would like nutrition, but not in an obsessive way.
Oh, totally.
Right?
No, this is all resonating with me so strongly for several reasons. I mean, one, my wife and I, so my wife and I, we both have insomnia, and we are both pretty anxious people. So hearing you talk about how sleep connects to anxiety is very interesting to me from that side. And I know just being a person that struggles with anxiety a lot, how that affects other areas of your life. But also just having a baby and being chronically sleep deprived for the past several months. I have been thinking a lot lately. This is so perfectly timed because my wife and I have just both been talking a lot about how our perspective on the value of sleep has totally changed now that we've had a child, because, we really just don't have any control. And so we're having to just roll with the punches day to day and get as much rest as we can. But, we're seeing the effects that sleep deprivation has on other areas of our life, on work. I mean, definitely, I have several clients that I consult with, helping them build out laboratories or production facilities, helping them with quality management in science context and that sort of thing. And I know that if I am sleep deprived and I go in to a client's place of business and try to work with them, I get aggravated very easily. Get very, very irritable. Even when I don't have the self-awareness to say, oh, I'm feeling irritable right now. And thus I need to be careful about my interactions with other people. It's just happens. You just think you're going through your normal thing, and all of a sudden you're snapping at people.
Right.
and not recognizing that, like, oh, I'm tired, and that's
I'm a biological organism. I'm not functioning at an optimal level.
Yeah, and when that goes on for too long, it really, really starts to have all sorts of other effects on the way that you just perceive the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
there's a reason sleep deprivation is a form of torture.
Yes.
It's, I think about even like amphetamine psychosis, where people are, on a 3-day binge with methamphetamine, and they are in a really a rough place mentally as a result of that. It's part of it's the drug, but part of it's sleep deprivation too.
Yeah.
No one really thinks about that relating to that specific, when someone's binging on stimulants, that the 2 days of not sleeping is going to have an incredibly adverse reaction to your mental health. Well, what's interesting too, related to cannabis, is it's found that cannabis can like kind of help people get to sleep maybe easier on the front end, but it's really disruptive to REM sleep.
Yes.
So you're more likely to wake up in the middle of the night and not get like as deep of sleep, and have, when you have REM interrupted, you get what's called dream pressure, and it's more likely to wake you up. And the irritable thing, you're exactly right. There's something in business called the mood elevator, and you can go on like Harvard Business Review and look this up. And it talks about like when we're in a place of anxiety, an irritable place, like try to commit to doing no harm at work. So if you're a manager, in those moments, having the self-awareness to catch it and say, I have an important meeting today, I'm going to push it if I can till tomorrow, or something like that. Now, what's here, if we want to take this a little deeper, what's fascinating about it, there were some studies done with 2 issues looking at food in the relationship to sleep, and then social isolation. So when people are sleep deprived, others perceive them as even if you take a picture of someone who's 2 or 3 days sleep deprived, people will say, just by their body movements, how they're talking, their pictures, people will say, I don't know if I'd want to be friends with that person. Interesting, right?
Wow.
So, but the other thing is, they've done studies where they watch people who are sleep deprived do social interactions, your personal space gets much farther, because your amygdala is much more active. So you're on a little more heightened fear-based alert place. So you're skeptical of other people. So if I'm sleep deprived, I'm walking around nervous of others. I'm more skeptical of others. Wow. I'm less likely to connect with others, and my personal space literally gets distanced from other people. So the social isolation piece, which we know is related to addiction and all these kinds of things, when we're sleep deprived, it plays into that. The other thing, which was interesting, when you're sleep deprived, you have 2 hormones, ghrelin and leptin.
Yeah.
One of them relates to signaling that you're hungry. One of them signals that you're full. Well, when you're sleep deprived, the signaling that you're full is kind of turned down, and the signaling that you're hungry is turned up.
Interesting.
So you're more likely, you eat more when you're sleep deprived. And then a woman I forgot where she's at in Europe, she's studied sleep for 25 years. She did a study where they told people they kind of tricked them in the study. They said, we're basically studying whatever, like reaction time when you're sleep deprived versus when you're not. But what they really wanted to study, when they put them back out into the lobby, they had a spread of food, healthy options, fruit, vegetables, stuff like, healthier stuff. And then they had sugary stuff. And by far, the people, when they compared the people who were sleep deprived to not, when they observed them through a 2-way mirror, people who were sleep deprived were way more likely to be grabbing sugar, chocolate, sweets, stuff like that, than like broccoli. And the people who got enough sleep, they're like pretty content to grab carrots and some dip or whatever.
Yeah.
So how you eat and how much you eat is related to sleep deprivation as well. So this is where your mind gets blown when you start hearing this information about sleep, because you're like, wow, this touches on
so many things,
everything.
Yes.
It's like, it's really wild, and we just sort of, this whole notion, I remember if I'll sleep when I'm dead, or it's like, we consider it like a cool thing to like not sleep. And in the incidence of drowsy driving accidents compared to drunk driving accidents, it's way more. People die way more from drowsy driving accidents. But for every $100 we spend on public service announcements and education on drunk driving campaigns, we spend $1 on drowsy driving campaigns.
Wow.
Even though it's a way higher risk factor by far.